Chapman School of Seamanship right here in Stuart, Florida. If you're looking to take a marine surveying class, captain's license, Yamaha mechanics, they were 8th in the country, by the way, in Yamaha mechanics. So they unbelievable feat. If you're looking to do seamanship courses, check them out. Just go to chapman.org, chapman.org. Ahoy! This is your captain speaking, Greg Michael of Pinnacle Marine Group, Marine Surveyors, and welcome aboard the Nauti Buoys Boat Show. I'm joined by Captain Happy, Glenn Shadbolt, Marine Mechanic and Shipwright, and aboard this vessel, we talk everything about boats, the build, the mechanics, the good, the bad, and the ugly. We go where the seas take us. The topics will be endless. Electronics, marinas, restaurants, vacations, cruising and fishing. Our show includes live callers with real questions. Let's fare these waters together. Call 772-773-2600 every Tuesday between 5 and 5:30 p.m. Eastern. If you're a guest or a caller, you certainly are naughty. So we're back from vacation and holiday, and we have a new season. So today, you're stuck with just the Nauti Buoys. We're going to talk about boat shows and tariffs and some other boats we've seen and some things we've done and some vacations. So you're stuck with us today, okay? So let me get started here. Glenn, the thing you hate. You know what that is. My joke.
Oh, your joke. I don't hate your joke.
Okay, so we got a joke coming up here for you. So this is the naughty joke. Ready? A bum who is obviously has seen more than his share of hard times approaches a well-dressed gentleman on the street. Hey, buddy, can you spare $2? The well-dressed gentleman responds, You're not going to spend it on liquor, are you? He says, No, sir, I don't drink, retorts the bum. You're not going to throw it away on some card game, are you? No, I don't gamble. You wouldn't waste the money for fishing gear, flies, boots, or rods, would you? Asked the man. Never, says the bum. I don't fish. The man asked the bum if he would like to come home with him for a home-cooked meal. The bum accepts eagerly. While they are heading for the man's house, the bum curiously gets the better of him. Isn't your wife going to be angry when she sees a guy like me at your table? Probably, says the man, but it'll be worth it. I want to see what happens to a guy who doesn't drink, fish, or gamble. We all got our vices, right? So, okay. All right, today we're going to talk about some of the things we've been doing the last few months. We haven't done a show in, oh my God, like 2 months. So we've all been on vacation. We've had our winter getaways, Disney, Universal. We've done the whole gamut. So, and you've been up to New York and back, and you've done your thing in Bahamas and all that good stuff.
Oh,
so,
Bahamas.
Yeah. So, but we're going to talk about some of that stuff, some of the things that are happening on the news, and certainly some boat things that are going on. So, first thing I want to talk about is the boat shows. So I noticed this year, certainly the Stuart Boat Show we go to, the people were there. It didn't seem like anybody was interested in buying. I've talked to a lot of brokers. They said it was very, very slow. The excitement wasn't there. The eagerness wasn't there. People weren't jumping on the boats and doing what they always do. So, I felt bad for the vendors, but us being in the business, I felt bad for us. I'm like, people aren't buying boats? Wow. So the other thing, even Miami and Fort Lauderdale, same thing. Very somber, very laid back, wasn't exciting. There was no excitement. There was no people,
Because people don't have money to throw away.
They have money to throw away. And, you remember the old days with the Sea Ray boat shows, right? So we'd go to the Javits Center.
Oh, back in the 80s?
Yeah, we go to the Javits Center. They'd ring the bell every time you sold a boat, right? And
But dude, in the 80s, you could sell pencils on a street corner and support a,
I know.
there was money everywhere.
yeah,
then.
there's no money, right? So, but the boat shows, I want to just let everybody know they were kind of I'd say they were a bust. They weren't, they weren't really that good. I got to meet some good people, got to meet interesting people, but I don't know of anybody who was selling boats at these shows. Certainly not the regular.
Well, supposedly the very expensive ones are moving well.
Yeah, I think the people with money will have money and they'll buy. We were just talking about this, remember what was our bread and butter boat, Glenn? What do we always serve?
Sea Ray.
What model?
36.
36, 34, right?
And the formulas, all the formulas.
Right, and the formulas. But that was our bread and butter.
Correct.
Okay, you don't see that $100,000 boat anymore. You don't see that $80,000 boat anymore. It's either $3 million or people are looking for $20,000.
They haven't been building a lot.
Right.
In the 80s, they built so many boats, and those boats lasted for years. You could always get it cheap, and then after a while, they rot out. So, after 30 years, a lot of these boats are soft.
And the other thing is they're building boats, but look at the price of the new boats. Who can afford, a 30-something foot center console? $600,000.
Somebody's profiting. Whoever's profiting from inflation.
Right. Right. It ain't
You
us.
got that right.
It's not us.
Somebody's getting it.
Yeah, it's not us. But so I was a little disappointed to see that people weren't eager to buy certainly new boats, because you buy new boats, that means used boats are going to sell too.
Right, which makes less used boats in the future if no one's buying new ones.
Right.
There's no steady supply, so that's going to run, which is going to bring them. Maybe my boat will be worth something now. Ooh.
Well, it'll bring up the prices, but we'll be out of work. So, it's a terrible thought. But people just aren't spending the money yet, and I say yet. So let me ask you what you think of the tariffs. So let's get into these tariffs, right? Everybody's all nervous, and boat prices are going to be, because boats, you got the boats built in America, but you got a ton of boats now built in China, Taiwan, Poland, Turkey, China.
Isn't that why Sea Ray stopped making the big cruises? Because they couldn't make them cheaper. You could just go buy an Asmit for 1.2. Why am I going to spend all this money for a Sea Ray?
Right. Well, Sea Ray also had the stringer issues on their 65 fly and 55 fly. Remember, they used to pop out. So, that's another reason to stop making yachts. You don't know how. But
they try to compete. They try to build it cheap. You can't.
can't.
A cheap boat is a cheap boat.
Not when the labor rate in Poland or China is a fraction of what it is here. So you can't compete. But what do you think the tariffs are going to do to boat pricing?
You know what? To a point, it doesn't really matter, because you don't need a boat. You need a car. You need a house. You need this and that. You don't have to have a boat. It's not a thing. So if you don't have the money to throw away, you're just not going to spend it.
Yeah. More and more people are joining these freedom boat clubs and stuff, $400 a month. They go get a little boat. They go out for the weekend. Certainly renting a boat, $400 for a day. You go rent the boat with your friends. I hate to see that. I think boat ownership is always been, that dream, that fantasy that you always used to say this, though. They're buying the dream, but then they live the nightmare. So,
Right.
But
if they make the other boats cheaper, then we can maybe make more boats here, because there's more of a profit margin, because they can't compete.
Right.
Just can't do it.
Right. So I'm really hoping they start to make more and more boats here. I do. Not to say that some of these foreign boats aren't built well. I mean, Pacific Asian Yard, right? Taiwan.
Asmit? You want to talk about Asmit?
No. I'm talking about, let's take the Pacific Asian Yard, right? That's Taiwan. They built Grand Banks for years.
Yeah, but you need all the wood. That's why they build them there.
But
The
it's-
woodwork.
and
What are you
it's
going to do?
quality.
That woodwork here?
No.
That's why they're built there. It's for the woodwork. You got
Yeah.
the trees there. You got the people.
You don't have the
It's just-
craftsmen here anymore. They just don't do
you
it.
do have craftsmen, but I don't know if you got enough. And what would it cost?
Forget it. So, but they China's built some good boats. Taiwan's built good boats. So some of these boats are pretty good. Italy, they build boats. The Azimits and the Ferrettis and all that. So we're getting a lot more influx of foreign boats built. And then
Did you
here.
know that the captain I know, he had to help move a Ferretti. I forget if it was 70 feet or 90 feet. The boat had no fucking rub rail.
Yeah, they don't have rub rails.
So there's no way to.
That
You're not even
sleek
allowed
design.
to. Yeah, but there's nowhere to put the pressure.
Right.
You got to do. What a horror.
Yeah, it's well, they got that sleek design. So listen, let's not re-engineer boats, Glenn, because we could do that all day, right? There's problems with every part of these boats.
Well, no, they just look at the Aspen. If you don't put the block where you're supposed to, it goes through the bottom of the boat.
Goes through the bottom of the hull. I know. So but again, Chinese, English, Taiwanese, Polish, Turkish, all these countries, they're starting to dominate the yacht market.
Because they can sell them cheap.
Right. And the cheap labor. So we got to get, maybe we got to get these tariffs, handled so that we can get some fair labor over there. And, maybe boat prices are going up. I don't know. But we certainly can't let the foreign boat market beat the American market. Because I'm going to tell you this right now. Pick a market, Italian, Chinese, Polish, Turkish, whatever you want. We still build a better boat. American boats are still better boats.
Yes, that's a given.
Right. So for all the listeners out there, I'm going to tell you this right off the bat. An American boat is a much better built boat. They just are. And maybe it's because we pay more. Maybe it's because...
Well, Nordhaven builds it.
Well, Nordhaven is, that's a whole different boat. But if you take two center consoles or you take two cruisers side by side, one foreign, one here, America just does it right, And we get on Sea Ray a lot, but for years they built a great boat. They did. So, and Viking's still building a great boat there in New Jersey. We got a lot of really good boats that are still built here. So we got to keep them in America. We got to keep the boat building in America. And I hope they do. And I hope.
Well, Florida down here has many small ones. You got the Conch, and you got all the.
Yeah.
There's so many
Stewart
other-
Boat Works.
Stewart Boat Works. I can't remember.
Almirada. You got a ton down here. Pursuits down here. You got a ton, and they build great boats. So I really hope. That the tariffs even things out, and I hope we get our American boat building back to where it used to be, because we did it right. We had craftsmen, Remember Hatteras? You had to be a craftsman to build that boat. So we got to get them back. But, you look at some of these other boats, Aquilia and Princess and Hanover and Galleon, Prestige. There's a million new boats out there too. Now, let me ask you this. You go to the boat shows and you start to look at center consoles. I don't recognize any of the names. There's a new center console coming out every day.
But just because the name's old doesn't. How many times has Sabre been sold? How many times has Mako been sold? Right. So there's we sold Makos for a couple of years. The transoms coming off, the bows are opening up. So I think that was in the '90s, sometime in the mid '90s.
Remember we did the Lords and the transom fell off?
Oh yeah, the Lords were just
the transom fell off. But you're right. So I go to these shows and I see these new boats, and even cats, right? The new cat hulls, and I'm just like, wow, where do you build that? Who builds that? And it's a new name. But I still think the Americans do it better. So center consoles, I was online the other day and I just started to look up only center consoles. There's got to be 1,000 different center console companies. So when the people ask us and say, what's a good center console? My God, at this point,
Yeah, but you know what? You're not going to know what the transoms. It's 20 years. Are all the transoms coming off like Grady White?
Right.
Is it just?
Are they still using wood?
It's time. Well, it's not even wood. It's still they all
like Boston Whale still uses wood. And most of the boat companies today, they use Gusa board or plastic or PVC.
Vikings even cord.
Right, and they still use wood. But they segregate and they also infuse. So their wood is, it's impregnated. But again, I'm looking at these center consoles going, I don't even recognize this name, and in the old days it was Regulator and, Contender and Yellowfin, and you knew the boat. You could be on your boat looking out at the bay and go, oh, that's a Contender. Oh, that's a Yellowfin. Oh, that's a, today, I don't know what they are. And it's amazing. So
I wonder if they actually design the hull themselves, or they just buy another boat and they splash the hull, make a mold and change it 17%.
So I'll tell you what I did find out is a lot of these companies have other companies, pick a company like Conch, right? They have them build the hull in the mold, ship them the boat, and then they finish it. So, what are you really buying? You're buying, a Conch hull. Are you buying a Contender hull? What are you buying? So, a lot of these builders now are just finishing boats. And to me, if I'm buying a boat, my advice to listeners is buy a boat that's built in one factory and one factory only. And buy a boat that's, has the infusion process, because if anybody's hand laying a boat these days, hand laying fiberglass, that's such old technology. The new technology with infusion and the vacuum bagging, it's worlds apart strength wise. So there's a lot of questions to ask when you're buying a boat too. Is it cord, and what's it cord with? Now that brings me to another thing. So a lot of people go to these shows, and what's on the big sign in front of the boat? Wood free. Well, yeah, boats had wood in them. They were cord with balsa or plywood.
Right, but back in the day, remember, a long time ago, back in the day when guys tried to make all fiberglass boats, they always had a cracking problem. That was the problem. The wood was the perfect substructure because it gave, and it just was perfect.
Right.
And they couldn't get it right for years. So now, supposedly, all these problems are solved. Right. I'm not a fiberglass guy. I'm like the worst.
Yeah.
Right, so now supposedly all these problems are solved. But it's going to take 25, 30 years to see if the transoms are going to fall off. The Grady Whites made it,
Yeah, Grady Wets.
But still, that's what I'm saying. How long are they going to...
Well, I'll tell you this. So let's get back to the signs on these boats. Wood free. Well, that doesn't mean they're not cord, right?
Oh, true.
So in between the fiberglass laminates, these guys are using foam, right? They're using PVC foam, closed cell foam. Foam gets wet. Foam delaminates.
They could use styrofoam. Still wood free.
Right, still wood free. So you got to be careful with that wood free term too, right? Because they got to use something to core it. They're not just using solid fiberglass. That boat would weigh,
like a Hatteras.
Yeah, right. It would weigh as much as your house. So you got to be careful with the wood free marketing thing. But most manufacturers use the foam, and they use it right, and they use the process called infusion, which then makes it a much better bond, much better resin to glass ratio, weight ratio. There's a whole science behind it. So those are the boats that I think people should look at and say, okay, it's cord, but it's cord with foam. Transoms, for years they used plywood transoms. And they crack, they delaminate, they get wet. Guys like Boston Whale, again, they're still using wood. But a lot of these boats companies went to Coosa board. They went to other things. And the product doesn't rot. It doesn't get wet and rot.
Yeah, but how many cycles does it have? So remember back in the 60s, those big sport fishing boats, the old ones, and they, back in Montauk in the day, they'd be like on their third set of motors. They had one that couldn't get on plane. The hull was so loose that it hugged the water. It actually flowed with the water. It could never break free.
Yeah. So they get heavy.
But what I'm saying is wood, that was the whole idea about still having wood in the boat. It flexes. So you've got all these non-wood products. How is that going to be after 25 years?
So I'm very lucky. I'm on the board of Chapman School for Seamanship, and one of my responsibilities, being on the board, but one of my responsibilities is I take the surveyor graduating classes, and we go visit these boat manufacturers, Pursuit, or I got a favorite, Stewart Boat Works. Joe Walco is just a phenomenal guy. He owns Stewart Boat Works, Isle Morada Boats. And so he walks us through the process of how they build a boat. And it's just amazing. And when people say to me, oh my God, that boat is $350,000, it's 23 feet. Yeah, you know why? You got to see what it takes to build a boat. It's like building a house. They don't slap things together. It goes in the mold. It comes out of the mold. It's a lot of work.
So did you ever hear activator boats?
Yeah.
So back in Patchogue, back in the 80s, he'd be on one of the Patchogue West Sable, I think he was actually, in a building he met out of blue tarps, making boats in the winter with a kerosene heater.
That's not smart.
Dude, you go in there, you don't even need to go drink it. I'm just saying, that's how he used to make it, just in a blue tarp. There'd be snow on the ground, and it was crazy.
So, folks, there are still what we call backyard builders, right? The guy in a shed with a mold.
I think it was Mark.
Mark something, right? Yeah. And he built pretty good boats, by the way.
Yeah, I like this boat.
Yeah.
That's why enough weight. I don't like the outboards. I like it. Like enough weights when you go in the air, you could always come down nice. Yeah.
But they still have the backyard builders, but I'll tell you, today you get factories now, right? They're factories. You go to Viking, that's a factory. You go to Pursuit, that's a factory. Even Joe Walco's place, Stewart Boat Works, he's got different rooms for different parts and different, it's just all set up like an assembly line. It's amazing stuff. So, what I would say is this: when you're buying a boat too, if you're going to buy a new boat, go visit the factory. If it's a guy in his backyard, kind of taking plans or
don't take it. Whether or not it's going to be, he might build a good boat, but if he has a heart attack, there's not going to be a warranty.
Right. So try and there goes the beer. Try and buy a boat by a good name manufacturer, and somebody who'll be in business for a long time, because you're gonna have that boat a long time. So, what we're gonna do now is, by the way, we're gonna have Joe Walco on this show. The guy is so full of knowledge. He's just Stewart Boat Works. I can't say enough about them. They're just such generous, good people, and they build a great boat. Conch builds a great boat too.
I was impressed.
Yeah. Pursuit, another good boat. I mean, there's so many factories we're visiting, and they're just really good boats. So, people, if you have questions, call us or email us. But I'll give you that info at the end of the show. But we're gonna do something a little different. Usually, we take live callers, and we've gotten our email up, and believe it or not, we're getting a ton of emails. So we're gonna get to some emails instead of live callers. Glenn likes that.
What do you think? I work for NASA? I hope you're going to.
Yeah, right. So I guess I'll start with my emails.
Yeah, why not?
Is that okay?
That sounds good.
You sure?
The mood here? Yeah, sure.
You're relaxed?
I'm good. Go for it.
All right. I don't want to fight with you. Just
I'm good.
I'm good. So, all right, we got Gary M. from Jacksonville, Florida. I can't say their last names. I think it's a legal thing, all right? So, Gary M. from Jacksonville, Florida. He's asking me, does Sea Ray still build good boats, and why did they get out of the yacht business? Well, we were just talking about this. Sea Ray builds really good boats. They are. They're a good manufacturer.
They had a couple of mistakes here and there, just like everybody else, and they made good on it. And
right. Everybody has their oops model, right? But you and I have been around Sea Rays for 40 years. They build good boats. I would say their new crossovers and their new hybrid series, they're good boats. The outboard boats, they're building really good boats. So why did they get out of the big boat business?
can't compete.
One, they can't compete, right? So their price point would be much
Fly
higher.
didn't work out. Well, we'll build a cheap boat. You can't.
Right. They can't compete with the foreigners who have low costs, low labor costs. So they can't compete with Azimuth, Galleon,
They
the
should
rest
make all
of
the
them.
boats the same price. Then they bring their price up.
Right.
So it's a level playing field.
And the other thing that ruined Sea Ray with the yacht series, so the 65 Fly, the 55 Fly, they had terrible stringer issues.
Well, they try to build it cheap.
Right. Well, they glued the stringers in. That didn't work. You had stringer problems, and boats were falling apart. So literally, the boats were falling apart.
You got those guys up north. They'll fix everyone.
Yeah.
Good
So,
job.
no, they fix them, but and I wouldn't stay away. It's not that I'm saying don't buy one. I would buy one, but you got to make sure the stringers were fixed correctly.
Well, the problem, if it's your boat, you lose your boat for a year and a half.
Right. Exactly.
You know, so it's like, well, there's guys that'll fix it. It'll all be taken care of, but, your slip's going to be empty for a while.
Time. So that's probably the biggest reason Sea Ray got out of the yacht business. Price point, competition, and they did have some kind of oops things going on. So, but I got to tell you, I liked them. I thought they were good looking. They rode well. They were fast. I wish they did build a big boat, but
They had that V. They made it nice to Block Island. You could take them.
yeah, they were good. So I answered Gary's question. Good. All right, I got Chris C. from Hilton Head, South Carolina. And his question is, when they say no wood construction on these new boats, what do they mean? We just went through this.
Did you read these earlier?
Yeah, I didn't even read them. I should have. So again, Chris, no wood construction means just what it says. They don't core the boats with wood anymore, but they do put foam, some kind of coring, whether it be closed cell foam. And there's different grades of foam, by the way. There's denser foams, lighter foams, thicker foams, thinner foams. But most manufacturers that claim no wood are using foams. Transoms are using things like Kusa board, Penske board, things like that. So just to answer your question, Chris, is no wood doesn't mean no core. They still are cored. They still can get wet.
And hold water.
They still can hold water, and they can still delaminate. So it's all the process of building a reputable builder who uses the infusion process, who uses vacuum bagging, who uses quality products, and who knows what they're doing. So there are cheap boats that don't do it so well, and there are good boats that do it really well. So no wood does not mean no core. All right? I hope I answered that. Now we got questions for Glenn.
For me,
Yeah. First
it's not
one
my
is
child. I'm telling you.
Yeah, first one is, are you willing to take the DNA? No, that's not your question. First one is, how many beers do you drink? No, that's not a good question either.
Good. Did you know I went to an AA meeting the other day?
And
I was the only one who brought drinks. I was like, what the fuck?
nobody brought
Oh, that
beers.
didn't go well. No. What a bunch of posers.
I mean, if you're gonna claim AA, at least bring it, right? So okay. Nolan T from Massapequa, Long Island. Oh, we know Massapequa. We used to call it what?
I don't remember.
Massa Pizza. Mazza Pizza, remember? Everybody was Italian. So, Nolan T. from Massapequa, Long Island. My mechanic said I need to replace my fuel cell. Does he mean a fuel pump? What say you, Glenn?
Well, a fuel cell, I try to make it sound like space, whatever, has your fuel pump in it. And then a filter. Everybody has their own version of it. But a fuel cell is usually just a pump, a filter, and a float.
And a float.
If yes and no.
Okay.
Mercury doesn't have a float. Mm-hmm. On the newer ones, the Cool Fuel 3, but there's many, many different versions. But yes, if the fuel cell, you would just change the whole thing.
So why did they call it a fuel cell? Because they've added these other parts, the filter and, okay, the float.
So this way, when you're charging $1,800, it's I had to get a fuel cell, not a fuel pump. Is like $300, but a fuel cell.
And is there any way to change a fuel pump without changing the fuel cell?
But now you're working with gas, so you were going to confine. That's the whole problem. It's liability. So you want me to come into this thing, and then if something leaks, boat gets gas and it blows up, I kill everybody. So, for liability reasons. If things over 10 years on a lot of boats, just change it.
Change the fuel cell. Okay.
I went diesel, by the way.
Yeah, I know. That's good. So let's take like an older 8.1. What's a fuel cell cost? With labor.
Well, the old ones just had a low and a high speed pump. They didn't have a fuel cell. You don't always have a fuel cell.
Right. But I'm talking about modern engine with a fuel cell. What do you think?
They were like 1,800 last, 16, 18. Volvos were cheap. Had just the fuel pump and the filter. They used to be like 7 or 8. But the generators, the coolers go bad all the time. Right. They rot out. They're what, $800, $700, and they go bad every 5-6 years.
So everything's
unless you flush it.
Nothing's hundreds anymore. Everything's thousands.
That's the way they want it.
Yeah, that's a boat. That's why people aren't buying boats. Okay, we got another question for you.
Oh, really?
So yeah. So Darren P. from Chicago, Illinois. I love Chicago. Garrett's Popcorn.
I was never there.
Oh, what a city. You got to go.
I've actually been there. But,
Yeah, no, it's we've had a good time in Chicago. Yeah. But anyway, that's stories for another time. So we're staying with the Mercruisers on this one. Darren writes, I have an 8.1 Mercruiser engines in my C-Ray. I've noticed plugs and wires are very expensive for these engines. Can I use regular GM parts from an auto parts store?
No.
And
8.1. So the Mercruiser wires are expensive. They're like $500. And
what do you call the 8.1 motors?
Oh, the $1 million motors?
$1 million.
It was just, they were good. I had a bunch of customers. It's just high maintenance.
Right.
If you keep up with the maintenance and you change, the oil, don't,
change your oil.
25 hours if you run the boat hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So can he use wires and plugs?
Well, so the whole thing is the Mercury wires were 500. So you really don't want to put automotive wires on. So I put the Crusader wires on. I don't know if I could, but whatever.
Right.
And they were like $100 a set.
Really?
They're not as pretty as the Mercury, and I think the Mercury run much better and everything. But Mercury 5, Crusader 100. I mean,
but they'll work.
Yeah,
Okay.
but they're marine rated. So right, so the Crusader converted the 8.1.
Right.
So I think they fit better than the Volvos. But I was using the Crusaders because Volvo had an 8.1 too.
Yeah, because these are all GM block converted motors, right?
Yes, not anymore. Everything's changed now.
Right. But the old 8.1s, everything was GM block, so GM wires. So if you got a Crusader, Mercruiser, Volvo, it was probably the same.
It was forever. That's
Same
how
stuff.
it worked.
Right.
All the V8s. They used to have the 6 cylinders. Remember the 292s?
Yep, right.
So
he'd be better off buying Crusader parts and putting it on the Mercruiser. If he wants to save money.
He needs to buy a marine part.
Right.
Whether you buy the Volvo or the Crusader. This
So he's
guy
not
Mosetti, if it's like a performance boat, there's this guy on the 8-1 Facebook, Mosetti, who makes some really nice wires.
Okay. But he's not going to AutoZone buying
No,
parts.
you can't do that.
Okay.
Because it's not a marine wire.
So, Darren, to answer your question, no. That's it. Spend the money. Okay. So we're kind of done with questions right now. I mean, we got a bunch more, but we're gonna keep it moving. I told you just to let you know. So if you have any questions, you could always call in on Tuesdays at 5. And our phone number here is 772-773-2600. Now, a lot of people are starting to email. So if you have a question, definitely email us and we'll respond. If you have a mechanical question or a survey question, definitely give us an email. And that's nautiboysboatshow@gmail.com. So feel free to write us or call us, and we'll do our best to help you out. And okay, so this is the part of the show we have tips. My tip.
I got a tip.
Wait, let me do mine. My tip is, so I've been looking at interest rates. Believe it or not, new boat and used boat interest rates are coming down. So my tip is, buy the boat. Just buy the boat. Rates are coming down, buy the boat. You know what? Life's short. You got to enjoy your life and make memories. So I would say definitely buy the boat. All right, Glenn? What's your tip?
My tip? So if you help somebody move a boat to the Bahamas,
Oh, boy.
Abaco,
Oh, boy.
center console, it was all right. So we get to the marina or whatever, and you got to hang that little silly yellow flag for immigration, and there's another one, customs and all that. So the captain's out running around taking care of everything. The boat was really filthy. It wasn't my fault. The boat was disgusting. So I'm like, oh, I'm going to clean the boat.
So you're a mate on this boat going
Help
from...
him from Palm City or something. I don't remember where we started.
So you're Florida to Bahamas.
Florida to the Bahamas. Abaco. Right. So I'm like, I'm going to wash the boat. I got nothing else going on. I'm hanging on the marina. And I'm just, boat's filthy. So I'm scrubbing the boat. I'm having a party or whatever. So the captain comes back down. He sees the boat. He walks over and there's a meter that I didn't know. He goes, what are you doing? I said, well, you were gone for a while, so I figured I'd wash the boat, trying to make it look nice. He goes, water's 35 cents a gallon. You use 90 gallons.
Oh, my God. So you...
I was just, whatever. You're supposed to... Now, supposedly, some places water's $1.35. So if you go to a third world country, find out what the water rate at the dock is before you start playing with the hose.
That's a great tip. I never knew that.
Oh, and don't try to out-party a Bohemian.
No. Well, that I know. But I never knew that.
Neither did I.
I haven't been to the Bahamas for a while.
Well, that's the whole thing, because they have a desalination plant.
Oh.
And the whole island got wiped out in the last hurricane. Like 200 people, the whole community just got washed out. It's low, man.
So you're running up a tab with water.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
What's 90 times 35 cents? Whatever. It wasn't the end of the world.
No, but...
I mean, the guy's going to fly in with his jet, but whatever. It was just, I thought it was comical.
I think that's great. So the tip is find out what the price of water is before you start washing your boat.
Yes.
Okay. Good tip. All right. So again, this is just another introductory show. We've been on vacation. We're coming back. This is season 2. Next week, we're going to have some really great guests. And we're going to have a lineup for the next, months of really good guests. So we thank everybody for listening. We thank you for writing in, calling in. We're always very thankful that you're interested in the show and what we can do for you. So again, by the way, if you need marine surveys here in Florida, you can give me a call, 772-773-2600. Or go to my website. It's pinnaclemarinegroup.com. And if you need any mechanical services, give us a call. Glenn's very choosy at this point, but he'll help you out. We'll get him to help you out. So I'd like to thank our producer Jeeves, our assistant Samantha. I'd also like to thank Chapman School of Seamanship right here in Stuart, Florida. If you're looking to take a marine surveying class, captain's license, Yamaha mechanics, they were 8th in the country, by the way, in Yamaha mechanics. So they unbelievable feat. If you're looking to do seamanship courses, check them out. Just go to chapman.org. Check them out. They're a phenomenal school. They just do such a great job. The instructors are unbelievable. The staff is unbelievable. Everybody's unbelievable in this organization, the board, everybody. So definitely check them out. Spread the word, chapman.org. You'll be impressed. And definitely please hit that subscribe, follow, and like button. And please tune in next Thursday and every Thursday for the Nauti Buoys Boat Show. And every week we'll have exciting guests and informative news. May you have fair wind, following seas, tight lines. God bless you, everybody. Glenn, say it.
Good night.
Take care, people.